Britain's Conversation with Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Hello, good evening. This is Jacob Rees-Mogg, and thank you so much for joining me on my introductory programme on LBC. I'm so pleased to have this opportunity to hear from you. You know the form, that if you want to get in touch, call 0345 6060 973 or text on 84850, or even if you're very modern, you can tweet at LBC. But it's great to be here, and thank you. What are we going to be talking about today? Well, you might have guessed it's going to be Brexit. After this week, perhaps one of the most important weeks in British politics in decades, though having said that, it seems like every week at the moment is the most important week in British politics in decades. There is a great deal to talk about. We obviously had the vote on Theresa May, the Prime Minister's deal, on Tuesday, which was defeated by 230 votes, with 118 Conservatives voting against, plus 10 members of the DUP. We then had the no confidence vote the following day, which was won by Theresa May comfortably, and therefore the government remains. There's no general election. But Mrs May entered into cross-party talks, generously inviting the leader of the opposition to come and see her to discuss these important matters. He said no. He snubbed the Prime Minister. Mr Corbyn will not go to Downing Street to discuss these issues, but other Labour MPs have been in. So Yvette Cooper and Hilary Benn have gone in, showing splits in the Labour Party. And then there's been a brilliant speech by Boris Johnson today, setting out his vision for Brexit and for the future of the country, and the sort of determination we ought to show in developing our future relations with Europe, and indeed how we should develop policy at home. So it's been an extraordinarily interesting political week, important. And the question that we're asking, really, is with the possible extension of Article 50, do you think this is just a ploy to stop Brexit altogether? There are only 10 weeks to go, and the Remainers are getting more and more desperate. The ones who never accepted the result don't think that the people who voted to leave are very bright, think that people like me really should have gone back to school to learn the virtues of the European Union. They're the ones who are trying to get an extension on Article 50. But is this a sort of Baldric-like cunning plot to frustrate the will of the electorate and to stop Brexit altogether? That's the question. I've already told you the numbers, but just one more reminder. It's 0345 6060 973. And I'm going to go to Andrew in Hampstead to start us off. Andrew, hello, good evening.
Good evening to you. As I understand it, the backstop provision comes into effect if there is no agreement within a specified time on the withdrawal agreement. Can you explain to me why that is? The backstop itself is the Irish border, bearing in mind that all parties have said that they do not want, nor will there be an hard Irish border. Doesn't make sense to me.
I absolutely agree with you. I think it doesn't make sense. I think it's a phantom problem, because the Irish government said they won't have a border. The EU has said it won't insist on a border. Mr Juncker said that in the Irish Parliament. And the British government said it won't have a border. So all I can think of is that they're hoping Donald Trump will come along, and if he can't build his border in Mexico, he'll build it in Ireland. But you're absolutely spot on. The backstop is to deal with a phantom problem, and it's why it ought to be removed from the treaty, in my view.
Can I ask you, if Theresa May presents on Monday night the same withdrawal agreement, but it says that the backstop will no longer exist, would you support that?
There are some other problems with the withdrawal agreement. For instance, I'd be very unkeen on an extension in the implementation period, but the backstop is by far and away the biggest problem. So I would certainly give it serious consideration. I haven't yet decided. We need to see exactly what was said, but I agree with you, the backstop is the major problem in Mrs May's deal. Anyway, Andrew, thank you for calling. It's very nice to start with somebody I agree with. So we're now going to go to Matthew in Warrington. Matthew, thank you for calling in. What would you like to say?
Hello, Jacob. Very pleased to meet you. I completely agree with everything you're saying. I think I think the Prime Minister is a Remainer, and her heart has always been in Remain. I think what the government want to do is put us in the point where they say this is the only deal that's available. We'll ride it out for 2 years, and then we'll say, we can't leave Europe, because I think there's too many people are scared of stepping out into the big wide world and going into WTO and trading with 160 countries out there. I think we've been seriously let down. I think the likes of yourself has been very honest, and you're one of the few people who I actually have told the truth and told it as it is. I think we've been hoodwinked by the Labour, SNP, many Tories who are going against the voters. And I think if they do another referendum, I think there'll be public uproar. There'll be a serious lacking at politicians, which would be a very, very sad state of affairs for this country.
Well, there's not much trust in politicians already, is there, Matthew? And that if we don't deliver on the biggest democratic exercise in British history, people will be deeply disappointed, and I think will lose all faith in what politicians do.
Well, at the start of the Brexit, when we decided to leave, it was put on the table, no deal is better than a bad deal. And we've had a bad deal. There was 400 politicians voted against it across all parties, said they didn't want to accept it. So it's a bad deal. So we should just leave. No one has said, we're all saying it's a bad thing, but no one has said Europe must be absolutely petrified as leaving, because if we leave on a good deal, there's going to be other countries who will say, well, Britain have done it, we're tired of it. They're losing all that money from us, all these billions of pounds that we're pumping into there to support other countries that have got no money. And if we leave on a good deal, I think it'll be the fall of the European Union. And, we never accepted the euro, which was a big indicator many years ago. We kept the pound. So we've always felt that as a country we wanted our identity. And I think it's time that we stood out on our own. We can get back into manufacturing.
I think you're absolutely right. Thank you so much. First two callers all in agreement, which is a very good start. I feel like a cricketer who's scored a few runs against the first two balls, but I'm waiting for the fast bowlers to come on. And so if you disagree with me, come on and send down a few fast deliveries and we'll see if I can bat those away. But thank you to my first two callers very much. And we've got some agreeable texts coming in too. Matthew has said, I agree any delay in Article 50 will inevitably increase the chance of the referendum result being ignored and the British people betrayed. But I'm lucky enough now to go to Pavan in Brighton. Pavan, thank you for calling.
Good afternoon, or good evening, shall I say, Jacob.
Evening.
Just a quick question. We're hearing about all these overt and stealth plots to try to frustrate the established law as it is. And I just wanted to know, what have yourself, the ERG and other Brexiteers done to try to preempt them or to ensure that there's no meddling either by fellow backbenchers or that wonderfully partisan not Speaker?
What have we done? Well, we concentrated very much on getting the Withdrawal Act through and worked very closely with the government and indeed made compromises with Remainers to ensure that we got enshrined in law the date of leaving of the 29th of March 2019, and that was very important. And you may have seen in terms of procedure, I've raised points of order of a quite detailed kind. I don't imagine people want to go into a detailed discussion of the word forthwith on this programme, but we've been trying our best to ensure that the normal procedures are followed, but the Speaker has considerable discretion if he chooses to use it. So I can assure you we're working as hard as we can to ensure that deal is delivered on, and what people voted for is respected because we believe in democracy. So I hope...
Sorry, Jacob. Sorry to cross you. The question I was going to ask then, I appreciate that, but then are we in this rather bizarre constitutional situation where the will of all these 17.4 million people is effectively at the whim of the Speaker, which, if it is just wholly unpalatable to any meaningful democracy?
No, I don't think it's quite like that. I think the difficulty is that lots of MPs say that they accept the result and they've got their fingers crossed when they say it and they're doing everything they can to frustrate it. That, I think, is the problem, and I think we need to hold them to account and make it clear that the proposed bill to delay the date put forward now by Yvette Cooper is an attempt to stop Brexit. And we should understand that the Labour Party, moderates, you might want to call them, Yvette Cooper and people around her, and some Tory Europhiles ultimately reject the result. For all they say otherwise, they wouldn't put this sort of bill forward if they weren't trying to stop it. Anyway, thank you for calling. I'm now going to go to Rich in Kingston, if you're there. Rich, thank you for calling.
Yeah, I'm here, yeah. So, Jacob, I just had one question, which no one's been able to answer properly, is if you go for the Canada 1++ agreement or managed no-deal agreement, how do you manage the Irish backstop? I don't understand how you will not have a border or put the Good Friday Agreement into danger.
Well, it's a very important question you raise, so thank you for that. I think it's crucial to differentiate between a hard border and a border, because there already is a border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. It's a border for excise duties on fuel and on alcohol and cigarettes and so on. It's a tax border for VAT and for corporation tax. It's a border for immigration regulations, and it's a border, obviously, for currency. But it's not policed at the border. And that is the key point, that you don't need to have hard border infrastructure.
So why are the EU insisting on it?
The EU has been using it very successfully as a negotiating tactic to try and bind the UK into their rules. From the EU's point of view, it's worked very well. But as the EU, yes,
can you
please
just
go ahead.
Name two countries in the whole world who have a common border and operate under WTO rules without a border checks?
Well, the question of
any two countries. Any two countries in the world.
There will be checks, but they don't need to be physically at the border. That is the point.
No, but then name an example of two countries that do not have physical checks at the border who operate under WTO rules.
It depends on the route that you are using. There are some routes in and out of Switzerland that have no checks, and there are some routes that have checks. So it depends on the route. It's a perfectly feasible thing to do.
But Switzerland doesn't operate under WTO rules with its neighbours.
It's got certain agreements, but you can do it in Switzerland. You can do it with an agreement. You can do it without agreement. Hold on. It's perfectly possible to have these arrangements.
But it hasn't been done before.
Thank you. So you've agreed it's possible. So therefore, where there's a will, there's a way. If people want to do it, that's really easy to do. But unfortunately, fortunately, because you're probably waiting for it, we're about to go to the news. So you are listening to me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, broadcasting from Somerset, God's End County on LBC. It's just coming up to 6:15, and it's time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
Buckingham Palace says the Duke of Edinburgh visited hospital this morning for a precautionary check-up which confirmed he had no injuries following his car crash yesterday. 3 men who deliberately caused an explosion at a shop in Leicester which killed 5 people have been jailed for a total of at least 109 years. President Trump's met a senior North Korean general in Washington to discuss efforts to get the country to give up its nuclear weapon programme. LBC weather, frosty and clear in Scotland tonight, while England and Wales will be cloudy with rain and some patchy snow, a low of -1.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. There are queues on the M25 clockwise because of an accident. That's now on the hard shoulder from junction 11 for Chertsey to junction 12 for the M3. Anti-clockwise on the M25, there are queues from junction 22 for St Albans round to junction 18 for Chorley Wood after an accident earlier on. All the lanes are now open there. There are long delays on the M4 out of town. A lane's closed from junction 1 at the Chiswick roundabout to junction 2 for Brentford because a car's broken down. The M1 northbound is very slow from junction 8 for Hemel to junction 10 for Luton Airport after an accident earlier on. And there are delays in South Woodford on the North Circular southbound. 2 lanes are closed because of an accident at the M11.
Brexit. Follow it live on LBC.
It's the lowest price ever event at Oak Furnitureland. So there's never been a better time to get solid hardwood furniture that's delivered free and with prices lower than ever. So don't miss out. Make big savings and get down to the lowest price ever event at Oak Furnitureland. There's a store near you. Must end Sunday.
2 bananas, 4 slightly frozen goji berries, half a spoon of flax seeds.
Fresh starts, eh? At BMW, we don't want you to bother with the boring. For only £39, our technicians will top up your BMW's vital fluids, check key components, and finish off with a wash and vacuum. Give your BMW a liquid detox. Search BMW service to book online today. Participating BMW centres only. Component checks may vary. Offer ends 31st of March 2019.
If you've BT at home, BT Mobile have something for you. If you haven't, oh dear. Because it's only our broadband customers and everyone in their home that get an exclusive £5 discount on our mobile plans every month. And if you join BT Mobile online, you'll also get a reward card you can use in thousands of retailers to treat yourself. At BT Mobile, we give back more to our customers. Everyone else, sorry. BT, be there.
Discount excludes businesses. For reward card terms, see bt.com/claim my reward.
A good cup of tea can fix everything. Well, possibly not your broken boiler, but Trusted Trader are always on hand to help. TrustedTrader.com have lots of really lovely tradespeople who are vetted, reviewed and reliable, so you'll have your pick of a great bunch. Simply pop the kettle on and head online to find a professional in their trade, including that heating engineer. See? A cup of tea does fix everything.
Every day, 2 people are killed or seriously injured on London streets by vehicles travelling at inappropriate speeds. So, on a motorbike or scooter, what is inappropriate speed? It's riding too fast in built-up areas. It's accelerating harder than you need to. It's riding too fast round corners. If you're on a motorbike or scooter, when you throttle up, the risks go up. Think. Slow down. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
The Vodafone Big Winter Sale is now on. Save £192 on the Samsung Galaxy Note 9. And get 100 gig of data now only £56 a month, plus £29 up front. The Vodafone Big Winter Sale. Go online or in-store today. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone. 24-month agreement, credit check and RPI increase apply. See vodafone.co.uk/terms. Ends 4th of Feb.
This is LBC with Jacob Rees-Mogg. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850.
Hello, welcome back. It's Jacob Rees-Mogg, and I'm getting lots of calls coming in. We're discussing, with the possible extension of Article 50, is this just a ploy to stop Brexit altogether? And there are all sorts of issues around this. Do you think that Jeremy Corbyn's position is a good one or a bad one? Other members of the Labour Party are going to see the Prime Minister, but Mr Corbyn's refused. Is this dividing the Labour Party? Does the Labour Party have a policy on Brexit that anybody can understand? We've had lots of calls so far, lots in support, but you're very welcome to ring in if you disagree with me. I'm not like some LBC broadcasters who only like people who ring in who agree. I'm one who likes a proper conversation, and I'm going to go to Roseanne in Sunningdale. Rosanna, thank you for calling.
Thank you, and you're in luck.
Excellent, you're going to disagree. Far away.
Big time. On the WTO, first, if anybody who's listening thinks that we're not sovereign as part of the EU, we will be significantly less sovereign under that logic, under the WTO, because we're in the WTO, where we've got 27 countries that have a say in the trade policy that we as a European Union pursue. In the WTO, you've got 60-odd countries that can veto your trade policy, and I am also aware that the schedule has Britain's schedule for the WTO has already been submitted and rejected.
But that's not right, is it? Because the EU is a member of the WTO, so you have a double bind on your sovereignty. You have the EU's bind because it represents us at the WTO, and then you're tied into decisions made within the WTO.
Okay, so you admit that we won't be sovereign.
We will be sovereign
under
because...
your logic.
Because
no, because if it's a double bind,
well,
and then we
I was following your logic, but in terms of the WTO... it's
also
not superior law. It doesn't have direct effect. So if the EU signs up to something in the WTO, that becomes UK law automatically. If the UK disagrees with something in the WTO, we're free to do so. It cannot enforce its law through our courts directly.
Yes,
that's the crucial difference.
What it can do is stop us from pursuing the trade policy we want to pursue.
No, it can't actually, because under the WTO,
our schedule, then every country has a veto.
It doesn't veto the schedules. That's not quite right. Your schedules.
Veto as a body doesn't, but
that's right.
The individual countries involved can veto it. They all have a vote.
Well, your schedules apply when you register them. That those are the schedules that you operate under. So the acceptance of schedules is actually a slightly different point. It doesn't stop you setting those tariff rates. It merely means that some countries are not accepting them and therefore may not need to give you in return most favoured nation status.
So we should be clear with people that on WTO we can do these things, but it doesn't mean we're going to get a favourable treatment from other countries necessarily. We have to get their agreement.
Well,
and
of course
you've
we've
never
got to
been clear about that.
Of course we've got to get agreement from other countries, but the base of WTO is that you trade with people on a fair basis and that you give other countries most favoured nation status. And the people who are obstructing us at the moment particularly are the Russians, and it's not surprising, they're not our greatest friends. So I don't accept your basic point, because the key to the European Union is that it is superior law, whereas the WTO isn't. It's a straightforward international organisation. But thank you for your call. You're balancing it up a bit, and I'm now going to go to Robert in Tunbridge.
Oh, hello, Jacob.
Hello.
Good evening. Hiya. I just wanted to ask you, with so many people in your party fighting tooth and nail to overturn the biggest democratic decision this country has ever taken, don't you agree with me that if Labour Party do get rid of Jeremy Corbyn, and after him not turning up for the cross-party talks, there is growing discontentment towards him within the Labour Party, if they move to the centre, is there a good chance you might lose out to Labour at any future election? And there's another question I wanted to ask you. She's invited various people for those cross-party talks that Jeremy Corbyn didn't want to attend to. Did she invite Gerard Batten? Because UKIP are polling on around 6% at the moment. Hello?
Discussion. And they've, since Nigel Farage left them, they've become a very marginal force. But to answer your basic question, I think whether or not Mr Corbyn is there doesn't really matter. Polls show that 70% of Conservative voters back Brexit. And if we don't deliver Brexit for them, we are in real trouble. It's not that they'll suddenly vote for Jeremy Corbyn. They won't vote for a Marxist, but they'll simply stay at home. Bear in mind that in 1997, Tony Blair got his landslide with fewer votes than John Major got in 1992. Tory voters just stayed at home. And that, Robert, is, I think, the biggest risk. But thank you for calling and for your excellent point. We've had lots of tweets. Bobby has tweeted, what about the other half of the electorate that are just being ignored? There is no mandate for us to leave with no deal. I'm not sure about that. I think people voted to leave. They didn't vote for a deal, but it's a fair enough point to make. And Adrian has said, if the Tories fail to deliver Brexit, will you set up a new centre-right party for people like me who feel totally abandoned? No, Adrian, I won't do that. I'm a thoroughgoing Tory, and I believe the Tory party is my party, and that it must represent people like you. That's the crucial task for the Tory party. And now the question we're asking, which I'm going to put to Millen calling from Chiswick, is on Article 50, the extension, and do you think this is just a ploy to stop Brexit altogether? Millen, what's your view?
No, I think so. It's to avoid a catastrophic no deal. I'll explain what a no deal, the natural consequences are. It means the restrictions, border checks and tariffs on goods going to the EU. We have no passporting rights. We have no certainty regarding rights of citizens for EU citizens here and UK citizens in the EU. No certainty regarding aviation, transfer of radioactive materials. We don't benefit from the EU's 700 or so agreements. It's absolutely catastrophic. And also for you to say that the Irish border is just a red herring, it's not. Either you have frictionless trade with the EU or you have complete independence. You cannot have both. For the past 2 years, ERG members have been stating you can have your cake and eat it, which is complete and utter bonkers.
Well, thank you for your moderately put opinion on the mental state of ERG members. Not surprisingly, I don't agree that I think the issue on the Northern Ireland and Republic of Ireland border is one that nobody's going to put in a hard border. But of course, once we've left, trade will be different. But we managed to trade amazingly efficiently with other countries, with incredibly short delays that goods coming in via Southampton take almost no time at all to be cleared. It's very smoothly done, and it's all computerised, and people pay their import dues in the same way as they pay VAT at the end of each month. And as regards citizens' rights, the government confirmed again on Thursday, reiterated that all EU nationals will be entitled to stay here after we've left and will have their rights protected. So I'm sorry to say that's simply wrong. Now we're going to go to Nigel in Tunbridge. It's not Nigel Farage by any chance, is it?
Certainly not, Jacob. I hope you don't mind me calling you Jacob.
No, please do. I have to call you Nigel because I only get people's Christian names. I don't get surnames. Otherwise, I would, of course, call you Mr. Jones or Mr. Smith or whatever you are.
No, Nigel's fine. Thank you very much. Listen, when this all started a few years back, I said to people, first of all, I'm not sure everybody understands what they're voting for, and I think the flavour of comments has been that people are saying, oh, wish we knew back then what we now know now. But the other comments I made were two. One was I felt it was all going to be like the Premier League transfer window, and that everything would sort of build up and build up and build up, and then at 11:59 on the deadline day, everything would get done. And I still feel that's the opportunity that we have. I don't think it's a dead duck now, and there's still an opportunity to negotiate, because the consequences of no deal, both to the UK and to the EU, seem to be horrendous to both parties. Maybe they're greater for one than the other, but it doesn't matter.
Nigel,
no deal is still going to be a bad deal for both.
I think you make a very good point. I've always been in favour of a deal, but I'm not as frightened of no deal or as worried about no deal as you are. And interestingly...
No, I'm not expressing a fear of no deal. I'm just saying I hope there can be a deal, because I think it's very much in the interests of both parties, the EU and the British, to come up with a deal.
I agree with you. I also note that Boris Johnson was basically saying exactly that in his speech earlier today. He didn't use the transfer window comparison, but his view was that the EU regularly agrees things at the last moment when the pressure's really on. So I think your point is extremely well made. Thank you for calling. I'm going to read out a couple of texts now. Fran texts, "It really is Parliament versus people. I think many people now see that democracy only works as long as the modern-day establishment gets what it wants, and usually we the people let it run along like this without questioning it. But when we do something that they don't want, like vote leave, oh dear, they can't handle it. Far too many Remain politicians trying to stop Brexit. It's embarrassing to see politicians behaving like this." And Fran, I'm afraid I agree with you. I think you've hit the nail on the head. David says, "Jeremy Corbyn's behaviour is becoming ever more puerile and his motives ever clearer. Cause chaos by refusing to join the debate in the hope the government will collapse. Fortunately, people can see right through him, and the Labour Party will be banished for a decade for it." We are now going to go to the news. It is just coming up to 6:30, and we're going over to Lisa Aziz for the news headlines.
Thank you. Prince Philip's been told he has no injuries of concern after having a precautionary check-up following his crash in Norfolk yesterday. The Duke of Edinburgh visited a local hospital on doctor's advice after the collision near the Sandringham estate, which left 2 people in another car needing treatment. 7 men have been jailed for a total of 127 years over 2 violent break-ins in Essex last September. One was described in court as being torture. Their victims were a young family and an elderly man. As Theresa May continues to speak to EU leaders and cross-party MPs about a way forward over Brexit, Boris Johnson claims Brussels would be flexible if the UK tried to negotiate a removal of the Irish border backstop. The former Foreign Secretary has also told an audience in Staffordshire an extension to the Article 50 withdrawal process would weaken Britain's position. LBC weather: frosty and clear in Scotland tonight, while England and Wales will be cloudy with rain, sleet and some patchy snow, a low of -1.
LBC at the weekend. Majid Nawaz.
Yeah, I have some confidence as to where Sir Keir Starmer stands on our membership of the EU. If you were to ask me where Sadiq Khan stands, I could tell you that. Unfortunately, for whatever reasons of his own design, by the way, we're somewhat vague as to what Jeremy Corbyn currently believes about what should happen with Brexit.
Leading Britain's conversation. Majid Nawaz. Saturday and Sunday from 12 on LBC.
Is Donald Trump a dangerous provocateur or a great entrepreneur? Does the Me Too movement empower women or undermine them? Does the country need a people's vote, or have we already had one? With independent opinions from the best British journalists, read a magazine that makes you think. The Spectator. Open for debate. Try a month free at spectator.co.uk. Credit card required. Future subscription costs apply unless cancelled 7 days before end of trial.
It's time. Time to join the millions of people that meet happy with Zoom video conferencing. With stunning HD video, crisp audio, and instant wireless sharing across any mobile, tablet, or desktop device. But the best thing about Zoom? It just works. So ditch the distractions, join the movement, and meet happy with Zoom video conferencing. Visit zoom.us to set up your free account today. That's zoom.us. Zoom video conferencing.
You know your disco from your calypso, from your... But do you know your pension options? PensionWise is a service set up by the government to provide free, impartial guidance about your pension pot. If you're over 50, call 0800 144 8944 to book your free telephone or face-to-face appointment. PensionWise, get to know your options.
Drivers, this should raise a smile. Right now at QuickFit, we're offering free winter safety checks. We'll look over your tyres, battery, lights and more to make sure your car is safe on the road this winter. Book online or head down to your local QuickFit today and drive away happy, whatever the weather.
Have you had an operation that has left you with persistent pain around the healed scar? You may feel this pain as burning, aching, shooting, throbbing or stabbing. At St Pancras Clinical Research, we're looking at a new potential treatment for this pain, which we apply topically. The study will take place in London, and if you volunteer, you'll be paid for your time and reasonable expenses. Find out more at stpancrasclinicalresearch.com. That's stpancrasclinicalresearch.com.
To find the truth, you wouldn't listen to just one voice. You wouldn't believe just one story, or trust just one opinion. And neither would we. The Week magazine reviews all the issues of our day and where everyone stands on them. Sign up online and try 6 issues for free. Search The Week magazine today. After all, you shouldn't make up your mind on just one issue. Cancel anytime during the free period or continue with 13 issues for just £40.49.
Jacob Rees-Mogg on LBC. Text 84850.
Well, welcome back. We've had a brilliant tweet come in from Dominic. I assume it's not Dominic Grieve, but it probably reflects broadly his view. It says the delay in cancellation will be due to the vast number of lies told by Leave, the corruption and the subversion of Parliament by Brexiteers. Remainers all want the same thing, whereas Leavers have failed to articulate a practical and coherent plan that isn't delusional. Well, that's a wonderfully moderate and fairly put line. I did say before that people who disagree with me are welcome to call. I hope that hasn't put off the people who do agree with me, because they've suddenly dried up. So if you agree with me or disagree with me, please call in. You're very welcome. You know the number off by heart by now. It's 0345 6060 973. We've been talking about whether the possible extension to Article 50 is a ploy to stop Brexit altogether. And the interesting news today that the Prime Minister of the Netherlands has suggested that there's basically nothing that can be done with the current deal. So, Bob, what's your view, Bob in Oxford, on whether this is a ploy to stop Brexit altogether?
I think an extension is sensible, but I want to take you up on a couple of other points that I totally disagree with you on.
Far away.
The first one is Yorkshire is God's own county.
Well, my mother-in-law would agree with you because she was born in Yorkshire. So you're on one side of the family on this discussion.
Right. The second point is I've been listening to a lot of Brexiteers. I'm a Remainer, but I understand that the EU has many problems. But a lot of the Brexiteers, and I was listening to a chap from Stoke, which is Brexit heartland, and he said, we've lost coal, we've lost steel, and we've lost pot. And he was blaming the EU for that, when actually the main reason for the deindustrialisation of this country was the Tory party under Margaret Thatcher. And then we had Blair, who was Tory light, and then we had Cameron. So what if we crash out, which I believe is your preferred option, what is the Tory party going to do for the industrial north? I keep hearing about this industrial plan. What is it? Where is it? How can people in the north and the Midlands take any comfort from going into a Brexit that will inevitably not benefit the north? It will only benefit the south.
The reason I would blame the European Union is because it's essentially a protectionist market, and that if you try and protect markets, you may delay problems, but you don't solve them. You protect things that are not as efficient as they ought to be. You discourage increases in productivity. You allow people to carry on as they are. And what we need, if we're going to compete globally, we need to have really high-skilled, high-value-added manufacturing. That's where our competitive advantage is going to be. And that the EU, by creating a false view of a protected, closed market, has delayed that process and has made it harder for us. So that's where I think the problem is. And if we open up to the world, then we will find that we will focus on what we are good at. That's the comparative advantage argument. And that, I think, is what will help the north of England as well as the south. I think it will help the whole country. But I think you make a very fair point that one of the reasons people voted to leave in the north of England was because they felt left behind generally. And that is a broad challenge for any government. And I think one of the issues here is the free movement of labour, which affects most the wages of the least well off. And that if that is controlled, you cut the supply of very low-cost labour, that will help the least well off in our society. So thank you for calling. I'm now going to go to Eduardo in Chigwell. Eduardo, what are you going to say? And do you have a view on the extension of Article 50, which I haven't been able to get out of many of our callers today? So are you going to come to the rescue?
Actually, the question I have to you today is to do with your tweet in 2011, where, in your words, you said, it might make more sense to have a second referendum after the renegotiation is completed. My question is, why has your position changed?
Because I wasn't on Twitter in 2011. I only joined in 2017, so it would have been very remarkable if I tweeted in 2011. Thank you so much for your point. We're going to go to Alex in Watford. Alex, have you got something to say that is actually factually accurate?
Well, I hope it is, Jacobs, but please correct me if it's not. Mine's a basic question. On the night of Theresa May's defeat, of where she spent 2.5 years putting the Brexit proposal together, it was reportedly said that you was drinking champagne. Is that correct, or wasn't you supporting your leader that night?
On the question here is after the vote on Tuesday. I had what I would phrase as a meeting with drinks at home, where some of the people who'd voted against the government's rotten deal came round and had a small tincture to raise their spirits and for us to discuss what we needed to do next. I think what is known as sparkling French wine was served. I'll now go to Stuart in Putney, who probably doesn't want to know about my catering arrangements. Stuart, what have you got to say this evening?
Hello. Yeah,
Hello.
I wanted to ask you if you agree that there is a democratic mandate for a soft Brexit, because if you take the 52% that voted out, at least 2% would want a soft Brexit, and you clearly had the 48, and that is where we'll probably end up with anyway, and that would be fine. That would be democratic.
I think it's a very interesting point, but I think Donald Tusk had it right when he said that there's no such thing as a hard Brexit or soft Brexit. There's remaining in the European Union or there's leaving. And the Prime Minister set this out in her Lancaster House speech when she said you can't be half in and half out. I think you're in the cake and eat it territory, if you'll forgive me, that actually leaving is setting your own stall out. It means changes in your relationship with the European Union. It means not being subject to EU law. That once you start being half in and half out, you're not really delivering on anything, which is why I think the majority against the Prime Minister's deal was so large. Remainers and Leavers rejected it because it didn't meet either of their requirements. But do come back if you'd like to, please.
I would, because you're just saying that's what you agree with. I'd ask if it was a democratic mandate, if that's what the people want.
Well,
you can argue the merits of it because you don't agree with it, but it would be democratic.
Sorry, what I was saying was that it doesn't exist. And that's what the President of the European Council said. He said there is either remain or leave. I think the soft Brexit term is meaningless because either you're in the European Union or you're out of it, and there isn't a hard or soft, there's in or out. And people voted to leave. And very interestingly, if you look at polls consistently since we left, between 60 and 70% of people have said that we should get on and deliver with the result. And that, I think, is the broad position of the country at large. Anyway, thank you for your call. I'm going to go to Martin in Southgate. Martin, are you there, please?
Oh, yes, Jacob, hi.
Hello.
So, Jacob, I have a question regarding actually the reason of the Brexit, because you are saying that UK is not independent within EU and that you want to take your country back. And my question is, why, and that you actually want to make your own laws. And my question is, what is the specific law that you want to change And why didn't you try to bring some suggestions to try to change that law within European Parliament? Why didn't you raise those questions there? Because if you're gonna do the Brexit, I believe you're gonna isolate yourself more than you think.
Well, I think that the law should be made in the British Parliament and not by the European Parliament. I don't think 27 other countries should decide what laws we repeal and what laws we keep. The European Union has areas of competence where we have no say in what we do. I think the tariffs on food, clothing and footwear make the least well off in our society even less well off, and that they should be reduced and over time got rid of altogether to improve the standard of living of our least well off in our society. As long as we're a member of the European Union, we cannot do that. So that, I hope, answers your question. It's an example of what I would get rid of, and I don't think us being having our laws set or impossible to repeal without the say-so of 27 other countries is not respecting our own democracy. I'm interested in what British voters have to say about British laws. That's the heart of the matter. It's taking back control. I'm going to go very quickly to Paul in Hemel Hempstead before we go to the news. Paul, do you mind being quite quick?
Yeah, hi Jacob, it's a pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, right from the start, I think anybody who's adult and informed about this would know that the appointment of Theresa May was symptomatic of this calculated and deliberate frustration and thwarting of the result of that referendum. I mean, to me, that woman, along with many of her colleagues in the Parliament, represent nothing short of a fifth column in this country who do not work for this country. And Theresa May seem like a failure to Britain, but she's a success for who she really works for.
Well, you're a very tough man. You put it in a more harsh term than I would, but I thought when we had the leadership election back in 2016 that we needed somebody who believed in leaving the European Union to do it. Anyway, thank you for your call. Michael has texted to say, how easy will it be to negotiate a healthy functioning relationship with the EU if we end up leaving on WTO terms? And now we're coming up to the news. You're listening to Jacob Rees-Mogg on LBC at 6:45, and the headlines are going to be read by Lisa Aziz.
Buckingham Palace says the Duke of Edinburgh visited hospital this morning for a precautionary check-up which confirmed he had no injuries following his car crash yesterday. 3 men who deliberately caused an explosion at a shop in Leicester which killed 5 people have been jailed for a total of at least 109 years. As Theresa May continues to speak to EU leaders and cross-party MPs about a way forward over Brexit, Boris Johnson claims Brussels would be flexible if the UK tried to negotiate a removal of the Irish border backstop. LBC weather, frosty and clear in Scotland tonight, while England and Wales will be cloudy with rain and some patchy snow, a low of -1.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. It's slow on the M1 northbound. A lane's closed from junction 8 for Hemel Hempstead to junction 9 for Redbourne because of an accident. There were queues on the M25 clockwise from junction 23 for the A1M to junction 24 for Potters Bar after an accident earlier on. On the M25 anti-clockwise, it's slow from junction 22 for St Albans to junction 18 for Chorley Wood after an accident earlier. On the M4 heading out of town, a lane's closed from junction 1 at the Chiswick roundabout to junction 2 for Brentford because a car's broken down. That means there are long queues from the Hammersmith roundabout. And on the A2 eastbound, there were queues from Dartford Heath to the Bean interchange. That's because the car's broken down.
This is LBC.
It's 99p week at Lidl. Get 1.25 litres of Coca-Cola Zero Sugar, just 99p. Chicago Town deep dish pizzas, only 99p each. And 5 Soaring lunchbox loaves, also 99p. You'll be quids in and still get a penny change. From Thursday the 17th of January at Lidl. Subject to availability, selected stores, excludes NI.
Just 2.5 hours away lies Gibraltar, with Mediterranean sun and a wealth of wildlife and heritage to be discovered. Learn about Gorham's Cave, a World Heritage Site. Trek through historical military tunnels, watch dolphins and enjoy breathtaking views. With VAT-free sterling shopping and excellent events all year round, you'll never be bored. For details, visit the Gibraltar Tourist Board's website at visitgibraltar.gi. Gibraltar, a year of culture.
Wellman and Wellwoman are the leading multivitamins for men and for women. Comprehensive formulas with vitamins B6 and B12 to support normal energy release. Live life well. Wellman and Wellwoman from Vitabiotics, the UK's #1 vitamin company. From Boots, pharmacies and vitabiotics.com.
It's time. Time to join the millions of people that meet happy with Zoom video conferencing. With stunning HD video, crisp audio, and instant wireless sharing across any mobile, tablet, or desktop device. But the best thing about Zoom? It just works. So ditch the distractions, join the movement, and meet happy with Zoom video conferencing. Visit zoom.us to set up your free account today. That's zoom.us. Zoom video conferencing.
At QuickFit, we know how important it is to have a reliable set of tyres on your car or van, particularly when you're driving in wintry weather. So come and see us and we'll check the condition of your tyres for free. We have over 600 centres across the UK. Just book online or head down to your local QuickFit today and drive away happy, whatever the weather.
Have you had an operation that has left you with persistent pain around the healed scar? You may feel this pain as burning, aching, shooting, throbbing, or stabbing. At St Pancras Clinical Research, we're looking at a new potential treatment for this pain, which we apply topically. The study will take place in London, and if you volunteer, you'll be paid for your time and reasonable expenses. Find out more at stpancrasclinicalresearch.com. That's stpancrasclinicalresearch.com.
To find the truth, you wouldn't listen to just one voice. You wouldn't believe just one story, or trust just one opinion. And neither would we. The Week magazine reviews all the issues of our day and where everyone stands on them. Sign up online and try 6 issues for free. Search The Week magazine today. After all, you shouldn't make up your mind on just one issue. Cancel anytime during the free period or continue with 13 issues for just £40.49.
Jacob Rees-Mogg on LBC.
Hello and welcome back, and I am sorry for all of you stuck on the M4. I know that part of the road only too well, and being stuck there is ghastly. So you have my sympathy, but you can call in probably on 0345 6060 973. We're discussing inevitably Brexit, and do you think that the extension of Article 50 is a ploy to stop it all together? And we've had lots of tweets and lots of calls. We've had good balance between people on my side and people who are opposed. Ruth has tweeted to say, your party is so far removed from the reality that people live with in the UK. Whatever happens with Brexit, your children won't go hungry and will be safe and warm. You are a shambles and have never acknowledged the 48%. So Ruth is ruthless today. And that leads into Jean in Canterbury. Are you going to tell us whether you think the Article 50 issue is about trying to stop Brexit altogether? Jean.
Hello, Jacob. About Article 50, I don't think we need that.
Mm-hmm.
What I wondered whether you'd agree with me is that with a no-deal Brexit, which is one I personally prefer, could it actually solve the Northern Ireland problem? Because then we would be able to make our own laws anyway, and and there wouldn't be a problem with everybody. Surely that would satisfy everybody else. Would I be right in thinking that?
Well, I think you're right, because the Irish government, the EU and the British government have all said they won't impose a hard border. So if we leave on WTO terms, there's no need for a backstop. There won't be a hard border. I think you're absolutely spot on.
I think that's the right way. I think there was a lot of scaremongering going on with this no deal that it just sort of upsets me. I think sort of our soldiers have died for this country, and yet some people are prepared to just let it go through to the EU and let them control us. Whereas I think we should take back our sovereignty and things.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, and I think democracy is so precious that when you've had the biggest vote in our nation's history, it's really important that it's respected and implemented. But your point is perfectly timed, because I can now go to Gary, who is in Northern Ireland, and no doubt you've got thoughts on the border, but also on Article 50, perhaps.
Yes, Jacob. Well, I hope you're enjoying your first show.
Well, thank you for listening, at any rate. I'm glad you've joined us.
Thank you. I think the biggest issue people have in Northern Ireland is we're going to need a green card to prove we have insurance to drive over the border, and that's the main issue we're having here, I think. The hard border, soft border, no one's really talking about that here because we don't think it's ever going to happen. As you said, the British don't want to make it, the Irish don't want to make it, and the Europeans are not going to make it, so it's nothing. And I do believe Article 50, if they do pause it, it is to end the whole referendum result, and we'll go for another one. And
Gary,
then
I agree with you. I think it's an attempt by people who never wanted to leave to frustrate leaving, that they think if they delay it long enough, people will give up. But I think the people of the United Kingdom are made of sterner stuff. But thank you for that. That's a really valuable call, and I'm sure people will have heard what you say, that people in Northern Ireland really don't think it will go back to a hard border. So thank you for that. I've had a text from Jack who says, my fundamental issue with the 2016 referendum and my primary reason for supporting a people's vote, which I would call a loser's vote in parentheses, is it seems unclear that those who voted Leave held a united vision. As the Father of the House, Clark, mentioned last week, not everyone explicitly voted to leave the customs union. The people need to say whether they want the deal. Yeah, I don't really agree with that, because the government sent a leaflet to all households saying that we would leave the customs union and the single market. So I think people did know that, and the customs union was the cornerstone of the Treaty of Rome. So I think you do down the insight and intelligence of the British voter. But now let's go to Daniel in Ely. Daniel, what are your thoughts this evening?
Hello, Jacob. Good to speak to you.
Thank you.
I'm an arable farmer and free-range egg producer in Cambridgeshire, and my point to you is that you want to see food imported from all around the world to give a better deal to UK consumers. But what do you think is going to happen to the UK-based farmers who are saddled with high-cost production systems, high labour costs, and all the extra costs associated with being in a developed economy? What will happen to us when this cheaper food comes in from abroad, produced to cheaper standards?
I absolutely accept the point that you're making, and one of the things that I've said is that I would remove duties on all goods that we don't produce as soon as we leave, but that I would look at protections on goods that we do produce over a phased programme, because I think it'd be unfair on farmers if you changed it overnight, but that the quid pro quo is that we need to have a method of paying farmers that is suitable for a system that allows for food to be brought into the country, so that it may be more directed towards the environmental behaviour of farmers or the land management of farmers, so that they can have a fair chance. I think it's how you develop the system of payments within the current budget that makes it possible for farmers.
Do you think that with all the other stresses on the budget, the NHS and welfare and everything else, that there's going to be very little incentive for government to continue to support farming, which is an expensive game for any government?
I think farming will continue to be supported to a degree. It's been supported for a very long time historically, but I don't think the right way to support farmers is to make food prices higher for consumers. I think it's more to do with direct payments, and that's the system that we need to move towards. And that some of our farmers, actually the top third of our farmers, are internationally competitive without any subsidy or any protection. And I think what you need to try and do is help the other two-thirds of farmers move up to that condition. I'm sorry to move on quickly. I've tried to rush through today to get in as many people as possible because we've had so many calls. But can I go to Patrick in Isleworth? Patrick.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Rees-Mogg. I think it's essential to extend have the extension for Article 50. Otherwise, suddenly on the 29th of March, we will find ourselves paying tariffs on all the goods that come in from the EU, which will push up consumer prices. And on the other hand, all our exports to the EU will be subject to tariffs from them, which will reduce our exports. And it'll all happen overnight. It's essential that we take the time to negotiate a trade deal.
Except we don't have to charge any tariffs on goods coming into us.
Well, I know, I've heard you say that before.
That's under our control.
We would then end up in a situation, for example, where if we export shoes to Italy, for example, they will go in tariff-free, but if we import shoes from Italy, we'll be paying tariffs on them, which doesn't sound like a very good deal at all.
The other way round, that we would not charge tariffs on imports. We would be free to set our tariffs at a zero rate, which would be very good for British consumers. So I think leaving without an arrangement on WTO terms would not push up prices in the UK. It might push up prices for continentals, but we'd have £39 billion with which we could compensate, even under WTO rules, our own producers if they were affected by this. Richard has texted, who doesn't agree with an extension. He thinks it's definitely a ploy, kicking the can down the road. Extending Article 50 would be a national embarrassment. permission to extend from the EU would doubtless come with more strings attached, and I think that's probably right. So we're now going to go to Evan in Slough.
Hi, Jacob. I think you're right. I think an extension would be essentially there to allow for a people's vote. I don't think the EU has any point beyond that. But with regard to tariffs, you are right that if it would raise prices in the EU of British goods, and British goods being more expensive means less British goods sell, which means it costs jobs in the UK. And you're right, if we have zero tariffs here, then the goods in the EU remain cheap here, and we tend to buy them. And of course, the most likely result will be a drop in investment, which means the British pound will fall. And yes, we will get cheap food, but the British pound will cancel that out, resulting in about the same price. But our farmers will be potentially worse off, as your own economists predict. Agriculture in the UK will be devastated, industry devastated, services devastated by your own economists. So, I mean, it isn't a good situation.
Thank you so much. I've been far too successful this evening in encouraging people who disagree with me to call in. I don't accept those forecasts. I think it's a real opportunity, and we will see prices reduced. Lots going on over this weekend. The Prime Minister is at Chequers. People are going to see her, giving her views. She's talking to Jean-Claude Juncker. Lucky Theresa May. She really does have a fine old time sometimes. And other ministers going to see her, socialists going to see her, all sorts of conversations. We'll get a statement on Monday about what happens next. But the real excitement is coming up on LBC next, because it's the great Andrew Pearce to take you through for the next hour, which will be great fun. He is one of the most incisive and amusing broadcasters around, and I hope you enjoy listening to Andrew.
Thank you, Jacob. We've certainly enjoyed listening to you. Now.